Okay, so we'll see how this video goes. I got a new MacBook, a 13-inch MacBook Pro. I love it. This model, though, doesn't have the 1080p camera. It's at 720, so it's okay in the daylight. As soon as the light goes down, it gets like pixely. I put the end on a Neville lecture where it was dark in here, and I just kind of wanted to make a quick clip to explain the uh, the rapid ending of a certain audio clip set, that I created a video with for a Neville lecture, and I noticed that in the low light it gets really pixely. Anyway, why am I talking about the MacBook? Um, I manifested this thing. Now, it didn't appear out of thin air. I did have to pay for it. We bought it. Okay, so how could you say you manifested it if you bought it, right? Isn't it just as simple as going out there and buying it like you buy anything? Well, not always, right? I have a family. I'm married. I have a wife. I can't just go buy whatever I want, right? Now, I don't want to just I don't like to say can't, but in order to explain this in a regular way, I have to use regular language, okay? I know that I'm manifesting my life, that my wife and other people are me pushed out in my experience, in their life experience. I am them pushed out. It's a weird concept for a lot of people to grasp. Um, Even to people who accept the concept, sometimes it seems kind of weird, right? So, anyway, I had decided months ago that I really wanted slash needed. I had a MacBook several years ago. I bought it used in 2015 off from eBay, and it was an Intel MacBook. It served me well for about 5 years until the screen, the monitor, the screen died. I'm sure if I hook it up to an external display, it would still work. But anyway, I needed it as a mobile computer. So in January of 2020, I went out and I got a really good refurbished Lenovo. And when I say refurbished, it was like open box, brand new. You could never tell. I mean, it had a refurbished sticker underneath, but for all intents and purposes, it was a new machine. And really good machine. All right, I'm going to throw some tech specs at you. You may not understand this stuff if you're not a techie, but it has an Intel i7 8th generation. Remember, I bought it 3 years ago. It was already at least 1 or 2 year old technology when I bought it. And it was a good machine, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD drive, a nice, fast laptop. And it also, what I didn't even realize until I got it home was it had a touch screen. Touch screen really came in handy during the pandemic because I test software as part of my career, my regular career. And some of the stuff we test needs to work on a touch screen. So it worked out very well for me to do certain touch screen testing using my laptop, even over a VPN connection. So, served me well for 3 years, and it still works. It's in the other room. I still use it for certain things like that touchscreen testing for work if I have to. But I don't like to rely. I have everything on my machine, right? Everything is on my machine. I rely on it for a lot of things, for YouTube, for other things. I do other graphical design work. I'm not a graphical designer. I'm kind of like self-taught on that stuff. But I have other side gigs that I do for fun, like T-shirts, designs on Amazon, stuff like that, and other POD, print-on-demand sites. I do that. So I really rely on my laptop for everything from work from home with my regular job to YouTube to all the side gig stuff and anything else, bill paying, email, social media. I mean, you name it, everything's computerized now. So I started to get a little, you know, I'm like, this thing's 3 years old. It works well, but certain things are starting to stutter on it. That could just be because the hard drive, I don't keep it full, so it shouldn't be that it's running out of space. But I just noticed certain things were a little laggy that shouldn't be. So it started to make me think, well, what if this thing goes? What if the SSD inside is starting to go or something? So I said, I better think about getting something else. What do I want? I could easily go out and buy another Windows machine for a few $100s. It's not really what I want, though, right? I mean, rendering your typical Neville video, right, the lecture videos, once you put together the graphic, the underlying audio track and everything, it would take about, not a terrible amount of time, but roughly 42 to 45 minutes to render one of those things. You could do other things on it while it's working, but at the same time, it just seems like a long time these days. And the other thing is, the fans go on, it gets really warm. And the other thing is there's certain things you just can't do with that Windows laptop. It's a little bigger than this one. Like, say you want to lay in bed with the laptop. Not so easy with a big bulky Windows laptop, especially one that gets really hot underneath and has air intake underneath, stuff like that. Don't worry, this has a point, right? So I said to myself, I really like one of these MacBooks. These modern MacBooks are incredibly quick. I'm not a Windows gamer, so I don't care about that. So where was I? I was starting to feel I needed a new machine, at least a second machine, something I could rely on, but at least have a fallback, right, in case something happened to my main machine, or make this my main machine, which is what's happening, and then have that as the backup, or if I need to do the touchscreen testing. So, but you look at the prices of these things. Now, I make a good living, but like anybody, I have bills, right? I have a family to support. I have bills, lots of bills, high cost of living where I live, mortgage payment, et cetera, et cetera. So, speaking in the regular reality, again, I don't want to put power into this, but I need to explain how these things work in regular terms, okay? So in any regular person's life, you can't always go out and just buy something when you want it, right? If it costs a certain amount of money. That's just, that's just reality as many of us have been living it, put it that way. It's not really reality, it's just how we've been living it. So you may have to budget it, you may have to whatever, but a lot of times you also have to deal with another person in a relationship. They may not see the need, right? My wife sees me on my other laptop doing everything I need, and, she's got wants and needs too. What does he need a laptop? A new laptop? He's got one, right? He's not technical like I am, doesn't understand the reasoning behind it all the time. So that might be a concern, right, in somebody's life. So, and also there's the cost. I mean, you could get a Windows. Why not get a Windows laptop? What do you need an Apple for, right? That's another thing. Apple costs several times more for the same Surface specs, the same memory, hard drive capacity, things like that. The Apple costs over $1,000 in the $1,500 to $1,700 range for what I was looking at, and you can get an Intel powered Windows machine with the similar specifications for, between $500 and $700, for example, right? So that's a significant. It's like $1,000 difference. So what do you need the Apple for? Well, there's reasons, right? The Apple has these new Apple Silicon. When the Apple was Intel, it was just a matter of you wanted Mac OS, and that's when I bought the Lenovo machine when my first MacBook died. It was an Intel Mac. Macs were running on Intel chips. They weren't more powerful really than a PC equivalent. It was basically you either wanted to be in the Apple ecosystem or the Windows ecosystem, right? That was the big choice. So at the time, I went and quickly bought. I needed something, And I bought the Windows machine, and I've been happy with it ever since. It's a good performer. Um, it wasn't as much as I like Mac OS. I didn't need that, right? So come now, these new Apple machines are incredibly powerful. They have a completely new Apple Silicon, these chips, these M chips, and they are incredibly more powerful than anything Intel is turning out right now. And the power consumption is like nothing compared to Intel. I mean, you unplug an Intel laptop and you do anything real with it, and you're talking just a few hours of battery life at the best. And if it's an older machine where the battery's been cycled a lot through the years, it's even less. With these things, you're talking 17 to 20 hours on a charge. Now, again, it will be less if you're doing like say 8K video rendering, but still significantly more than anything on the Windows, the Intel side. And they don't get as hot. As a matter of fact, this thing, I've only gotten it hot once, like warm, not even hot. And that was because I was running a certain program that I like it's not native to this thing, so it has to run it through emulation. And it still rendered the video several times faster than my other machine, but the machine had to work, and it did produce some heat. Nothing terrible, but running the software that's made for this thing, whether it's iMovie or something else, no heat at all, barely any power consumption, battery barely any. So this is what I want. Plus it's smaller. It's a 13-inch, and you could pretty much set it up anywhere. So anyway, this is why I really wanted an Apple, a MacBook. So several months ago, I started thinking about it a lot. Like and it wasn't so much, it was like I put the intention out there. I'm going to get a new MacBook. Not, I wish I had a MacBook. Oh, I want a MacBook. And several times I have a MacBook, right? Thinking from the end, I have a MacBook. My computer is a MacBook. And sometimes when I was on my computer, as hard as it is when you're using Windows to pretend you're using a Mac, I'd pretend I'd see the Macintosh in front of me. I knew from having Macs, and I know what they're like, the lines and how they feel and everything. So I had a MacBook. So anyway, you go through the time. All of a sudden, then it came up. I started really looking again, and I'm like, you do the little thing where you fall back into the old patterns of how am I gonna swing this? I got this coming up. I got this bill. The kid has dancing school and other activities which cost several $100s to over $1,000 for certain things. So you're trying to see, where am I going to fit this in? How am I going to do this? And then magically, and I'm telling you magically, my wife comes into the room. Now, I do a lot of projects for my wife on the computer as well. My wife is crafty. She likes to do crafts. She does a lot of crafts for my daughter for school, for the Girl Scouts, right? She's a scout leader. So I'm always doing these graphics work, which she'd never be able to do herself. And she'd be basically buying them from Etsy constantly, these projects. And, she changes her mind a lot. I'm constantly. So in between work and my stuff, it's, I need 20 or 100 tags for GIFs I'm doing, or I need other assorted graphics work for these crafts she does. So I do all that. She has a Cricut machine, which I had to learn to do. She doesn't want to do it. It's not technical. So I even use the Cricut software, which it's a weird kind of a machine. It's not a printer, but it cuts paper or vinyl and things out, and then you use them in crafts. I had to learn how to use that to help her, and it hooks up to a machine. Like, I haven't hooked it up to this yet, but it hooks up to a laptop or something, and that's what controls it. It's kind of like graphic design software, but instead of outputting a print job to a printer, it outputs it to this thing. It's a cutting machine. So anyway, so I do a lot of stuff for her. So I was doing some stuff for her, and you could see I was getting frustrated. Like for example, in some of the graphic art program I use on my Windows machine, even though the program starts up okay and it renders the final product okay, something silly like fonts. You open up the font list, and I have a lot of fonts installed. You'd be scrolling through that font list, and the darn thing, it locks up while it's waiting to catch up. It's a pretty quick machine, but it's so frustrating. And you can see the frustration on my face while I'm trying to do something. And then even moving certain complicated graphics around on the screen, the interface started to like momentarily lock up to slow you down. And when you're trying to move something into a certain area and it needs to be specific, it's detail work, having that thing freeze up and then overcompensate, and you end up constantly trying to move it back and forth, and then it's happening again. So you could see I was getting angry at it, and she said, "What's the matter?" I said the computer. It's just it's a great machine, but it's for whatever reason it's bogging down with a lot of this stuff lately. And so without me having to say anything further, she said, "Wow, we need to get you a new machine." It's like, is this the same woman I'm married to? Because that never happens like that. "We need to get you a new machine right away." I said, "Yeah, we do. But how are we going to do it? This, that." So she works out this way. Again, I didn't even have to think about it. One of these multiple pay things she uses, and before you know it, I got the new MacBook in front of me. Now, granted, I also wanted to add I'm paying in here, for it. As I'm rendering the video, I thought of something. Another detail about this whole laptop situation is that it cost a certain amount. I was looking initially on Amazon, and then my wife was like, why don't you look around somewhere else, because this pay in 4 deal that we used could work against many different online vendors. So we looked, and this other one was $200 cheaper. So that's another thing that worked in this whole situation's favor. These things don't go on sale all that often, especially Apple stuff. So I mean, and the Amazon price wasn't bad for the specifications I was getting, and I was getting one that had a nice amount of memory and hard drive to it. It was above the base specification, because it's what I need to do my work. So anyway, we found a retailer that had $200 cheaper, which brought it down, even made it more attainable. So that's another part of this whole manifestation thing that just magically happened. We ordered it. Everybody does that, right? It didn't magically appear in front of me. But when I tell you, when you're in a relationship, sometimes you end up negotiating. You have to almost beg, to get cooperation from the other person. Now, granted, I do a lot of things for her on this, and she wanted to make sure I was able to do that stuff. But she also knows I do a lot of stuff with it. She knows I'm always on the machine doing something that's, you can't do anything without it, even paying bills. So, but all I can tell you is you have to take what I'm telling you on faith, is that it was so effortless, as if, the way Neville says, out of the nowhere. The solution came out of the nowhere, and it happened, right? And a few days of configuring this thing, I'm using it for work, and it's like a dream. It runs like a dream compared to my other machine. I still plan on using my old machine for some stuff, but this thing is a dream. Even just for example, she had a thing for the Girl Scouts the other day, and I stay out of the way during that stuff. I go somewhere else. So two of my dogs, we have several dogs and cats, and 2 of the dogs bark a lot. So we send them up in the bedroom. So sometimes I go up there and just keep them company, and I play on my phone or do whatever, watch YouTube, whatever, for the 2 hours or whatever this thing goes on. So I took this thing up there with me, which I would never do with my other laptop. I was able to lie in bed with this thing on my chest, and it doesn't get hot. It's light. It was great. I was able to actually, I think I rendered a video. Yeah, I rendered a video for the YouTube channel. I was like, I actually got something done in bed, which I would never be able to do with the Windows laptop. Yeah, I would just end up with my phone up there, you know. But instead, I was able to take the laptop up there and continue doing what I like to do. So, yeah, I mean, I consider this a manifestation, right? Not so much the machine, but the process of getting it went from this excruciating process, potentially excruciating process of negotiation, blah, 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 whatever. And I had zero resistance. There was no resistance from the other person who also, helps to make it work. The actual solution came from that person. I didn't have to, you know, several months ago, I'm thinking, how am I going to swing this? How am I going to fit this in? It was effortless. It just happened. Okay. So, I mean, look, there's a lot of people out there in internet land, right? And someone else who does these YouTube videos, another channel, and she's very successful. She lives in Italy, and she's seems very successful, like financially, like she's got her stuff together, and she's got like a rich boyfriend or whatever, fiance now. And I think she was the one who said she wasn't trying to react so much to, but she was answering these random messages she gets on the YouTube videos saying, well, how come you're not a billionaire yet? You always get the person out there who says, well, if this stuff works, if this stuff's for real, how come you're not rich? How come you're not filthy rich? How come you're not a billionaire? Here's this guy, me, talking about getting this computer, trying to afford a freaking laptop, and like it's a big deal. Well, everybody's at a different place in their journey. And deep down, not everybody wants to be a billionaire. I don't know how else to say that. Like, $1 billion would be great, to be filthy rich, right? Be able to buy whatever you want without any resistance at all. You just pull out the money and there it is. But can everybody in your reality be like that? I mean, someone's got to pick up the trash, right? Someone's got to clean the hotel room. I don't know how to answer some questions. There's always something out there. Everybody's at a different stage. Everybody's got different resistance. Other people, some people want enlightenment and knowledge. Some people want relationships. Some people want enough money to be comfortable, right? To have a roof over their head. I'm very grateful. I have a nice roof over my head. I have a loving family. This is what's really important to me. Now, I'm not going to lie. Am I out there trying to manifest or, working on manifesting other things? Of course. Of course. What can I say? Am I a billionaire? Not yet. But I've got this awesome laptop, which is going to help me churn out more content. But I really wanted to try to explain the process as best as I could, that I manifested an effortless pathway to holding one of these and using it. When, I looked at these things for a while, and every time it would come up, it'd be fraught with issues. The same income the whole time, same bills the whole time, same wife the whole time. But at other times in the past, it was, nah, that's ridiculous. You don't need that. That's ridiculous. It's too expensive. What are you talking about? Where's my tablet? How come you get to get something, you know? This time, effortless, as if under a spell. Um, and it's still mutually beneficial because it's going to be used for lots of things, just like the other one was. And things will go faster and smoother. But um, the actual process of getting it was, as Neville says, don't worry about the how. And I separated from the how. I didn't sit there looking at these things on, every once in a while I would pull it up on Amazon or somewhere, look at the specs, decide what I would like. But I didn't like pine away over it. I would just kind of let it go, you know. I would look at it for a while, imagine it, imagine using it, imagine how much better things would be. And then I would kind of let it go. I wouldn't sit there and I wouldn't stress over how. I would just say, you know, it'll happen. It'll happen. Somehow it'll happen. If, and be patient. You know, if it's, you know, like I said, I started thinking about this several months ago. Several months. It wasn't a day in the making. It wasn't an hour. After a week, I didn't get all pissed off and say, oh, you know, I'll never get one of those, right? Because that then has the opposite. And that's what a lot of people do. They get so impatient. Oh, that'll never happen. What was I thinking? You know? And so, you know, what was I thinking? That'll never happen. And then, you know, it's like you take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back when you do that. So, just need to check my phone here. I'm not quite done yet with this. Okay. So, I'm just trying to keep it real here and have this conversation with you to try to, and use this as a subject to say, you know, let it go. Let it go. Don't worry. Don't stress over the how. When I tell you this was completely effortless and out of the blue, it surprised me. It surprised me. And when it happened, and she was like, we got to get you one. Go look, we got to get it. It's like, it became urgent for the, what? Urgent for her? This stuff can work spooky when you let it. That's all I got to say. I'm telling you, it's real. So anyway, please like and subscribe. Check out the other videos, and I'll have more Neville lectures and everything else coming. I hope this is useful to or inspiring for somebody. It's more than just buying a laptop, folks.